to Mark Gibson Shumawi's channel. Accountant with designations CPA, MBA, CMA, ACPA, ASA, Australia. Enjoy learning!
Remember class, in partnership, this, di ba, by definition, partnership is composed of two or more individuals who agree among themselves to put their money, property into one organization. No? So it's based on mutual and consensual agreement. No? So therefore, uh, partnership dissolution, it's kind of like dissolving the partnership kasi hindi sila nagkasundo. Kasi nga, di ba, partnership is really based on the moods of the partners. Pero ano ba yung mga instances where partnership dissolution takes into effect? So number one, if there's admission of a partner, and then also if there's a retirement of a partner, there's a death, and finally, if the partnership if the partners agree to form a corporation. Of course, in those instances, we have to dissolve a partnership. No? And then finally, yung final sabi natin topic on partnership will be partnership liquidation. No? In partnership liquidation naman, by the word itself, liquidation, so we have to syempre, we have to liquidate all our assets na. So ano yung priority? So pay our outside creditors and then distribute among the remaining partners. No? So today, we'll discuss partnership dissolution. O yan, kita nyo yung template natin. Scholar of the Year, Scholar of the Year 2022, no? So very Perry. So partnership dissolution. Partnership dissolution due to changes in ownership interest occurs for a variety of reasons.
Okay, so once again, pleasant afternoon to all of you. Today we'll discuss about partnership liquidation. So ano ba ibig sabihin ng partnership liquidation? Sige, bago siguro 'yon, let's define first what is partnership, no? So remember, back in your basic accounting, we defined partnership as an organization where two or more individuals agree to pool money, services or goods and services into one common fund with the intention of dividing the profits among themselves, no? So right now, so parang there are certain stages in partnership. That's of course, there's partnership formation, and then there's operation, there's dissolution, and finally liquidation. So in terms of partnership liquidation, we are now liquidating the partnership assets. So we are terminating the partnership, so we have to pay our creditors by priority, no? So kung ano man yung priority na yun, pag-uusapan natin when we go through the discussion problem, no? So there are two ways to liquidate the partnership, no? So number one, lump sum, so one time, big time. That's it, no? And then number two, by installment, no? So today, we'll cover yung most complex, no, which is by partnership liquidation by installment, no? So that's what we're going to have on discussion problem, no? So partnership liquidation, here are the steps in partnership liquidation. Number one, realize non-cash assets, no? So when we say realize the non-cash assets, it's simply uh, saying to sell it, no? So all the non-cash assets, we must liquidate it, we must convert it into cash in order for us to move into step number 2, which is to pay the claim of third party. Remember, uh, in when we're doing partnership liquidation, we are prioritizing claims of third party kasi there will be times na meron din tayong utang doon sa partner or uh, uh, may partnership has debt to a partner, no? So by order of priority, it will be uh, taken up in number 3. So distribute the remainder to partners, no? So it could be we pay first the debt to that particular partner before we divide the remaining partnership assets, no? Or net assets, no? So that's basically this is the full concept of partnership liquidation, no? So ang palagi kong take sa partnership liquidation is this is purely procedural. So here are the steps. So kailangan lang talaga natin sundan yung yung steps in liquidating the partnership. And remember class, no, partnership is based on mutual agreement, no? So meaning kung paano nila in-agree, that's what we're going to follow, no? So uh, if you watch the recorded discussion on partnership formation, so that's where they agree, no? So for example, uh, we partners ABC agree to pool 100,000 as total capitalization and then split the profit, sabihin na natin equally, no? So uh, in a partnership accounting, so what we're going to do is simply follow whatever the agreement between the partners, no? So we don't really have to complicate things, no? Kasi pag for example, no, in taxation naman, it's very specific, no? So we have to follow tax laws and apply it, no, in accounting for taxes, no? But in partnership liquidation, ulitin ko lang, it's really solely based on the agreement between parties. Kaya nga 'di ba, merong mga nagsasara na partnership, this is also easy to create, but also uh, easy to terminate. Why? Because what if one of the it's based on moods, no? So what if one of the partners just decided to pull out? Oh, then we have to dissolve the partnership, no? Okay, so partnership liquidation is simply partnership is being terminated, so we have to um, realize all our non-cash assets, sell all our non-cash assets, pay our our third-party debt, third-party claims or yung mga creditors natin, then distribute remainders to partners. No? So to illustrate that, let's have discussion problem 1. Medyo mahaba, pagtsagaan natin. No? So there are 4 requirements here. Actually, 4 independent requirements to kasi what we're going to do is we're going to illustrate 4 scenarios. No? So puntahan muna natin yung number 1. If all the partners are personally solvent, how much cash will Orochimaru receive at the end of the partnership liquidation? So in number 1 class, ang sinasabi dito is um, the moment that we still have to pay our third party claimants, all the partners have the means to do so, no? So may pera sila on their own, no? Kaya personally solvent, may pera sila on their own. They can manage to contribute more in case na mas marami yung kailangang bayaran compared to the partnership net assets, no? So let's have requirement number 1. Saka natin tignan yung 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So let me read the problem. Partners of TLS partnership decided to liquidate the partnership on January 1, 2022. The statement of financial position of the partnership on this day are as follows. No? So you have your cash, your trade receivable from Jairaya, you have your inventory, your PPE, payable to Tsunade. And remember, Tsunade and Jairaya, they are partners within TLS partnership. No? So let's find out what we're going to do to these items. No? Receivable from Jairaya and payable to Tsunade. Accrued expenses, then other liabilities. Ayun na. Jiraiya Capital, Tsunade Capital, and Orochimaru Capital. No? So trade receivables, inventory, and PPE were all realized for 700,000 cash. Liquidating expenses amounting to 300,000 were incurred and paid during the whole proceeding. So liquidating expenses, basically these are out of pocket costs, no, to liquidate the partnership. Ano yung mga example nito? Say for example, you're going to list your assets in the marketplace. Of course, you have to pay for those costs, no? So in general, we call it liquidating expenses, no? So let's also find out later how are we going to account for these liquidating expenses. All liabilities to third party were paid accordingly as well. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru shared the profits and losses of the partnership in the ratio 5:1:4. O, sige. Bear with me, medyo mahaba tong mga problems natin on partnership. No? But this is very, like I said, procedural. No? Okay, so let's have problem 1. Ito lang muna siya. Sige. Ano yung question? Tigpunin ko lang yung... Ah, hindi nakita. Wait lang. So question 1, sinasabi is all the partners are personally solvent. So ang tinatanong lang is si Orochimaru, ha? Kung magkano yung marireceive niyang cash at the end of the partnership liquidation. So lagay ko muna to dito sa ilalim. Okay. Hirap pag liit ng screen eh. Anyway, sige. So of course, no, in partnership liquidation, I suggest use this template, no. So basically, you're putting your cash separate cash column and then non-cash assets plus liabilities. Mind you, these liabilities only account for yung third party, no? So we shouldn't include, ayun na, shouldn't include payable to Tsunade, no? Exclude, no? So we should exclude payable to Tsunade. And then yung receivable from Jiraiya, we should also exclude it in the calculation of the non-cash assets, no? So pag-usapan natin yan later on. And then also keep a separate column for each of the partner, no? So what I did here is I also place on top, no, yung profit and loss sharing, no? So it's 5:1:4 or simply 50%, 10%, and 40%. No? Okay, so isa-isa natin. Ito, lagay ko lang dito, beginning balances. So beginning balances, 1,500,000, that's given. Okay. Then for the non-cash asset, paano natin na-compute to? It's basically all of the assets, no, aside from the cash, except yung receivable from Jiraiya. So it's 100,000 trade receivable plus the inventory of 200,000 plus the PPE of 1 million. So the total is 1,300,000. Remember class, receivable from Jiraiya, umutang si Jiraiya sa partnership, but again, during the partnership liquidation, the priority would be to settle yung mga third party, no? So later on, we'll check how are we going to account, no, for the receivable from Jiraiya. Sige, tuloy lang muna natin. Next, we have liabilities. So total liabilities natin would be 840,000 plus 560,000, representing the accrued expenses and other liabilities respectively, no? So hindi natin sinama si payable to Tsunade amounting to 250,000. So ito naman utang ni partnership kay Tsunade, no? So payable to Tsunade is not included, no? So ayan, nilalagay ko diyan class yung um, treatment, no? Now, pag punta natin kay Jairaya, tingnan natin si Jairaya Capital. Yung capital ni Jairaya should be 900,000. But look, we already deducted yung receivable natin na 600,000. So, original balance of 900,000 less the receivable from Jairaya of 600,000. No? So, it's already net. Next, kay Tsunade naman. Kay Tsunade, Tsunade Capital, we have 450,000 plus the payable to Tsunade of 250,000. So we are adding it as if we're paying it, no? But remember, class, we are liquidating the partnership assets, no? So that's why we have included this as part of Tsunade's capital. No? Orochimaru, that's 400,000. Next, basahin lang muna natin ha. Trade receivable, inventory, plant and equipment were all realized for 700,000. Listen, remember, yun kanina, tinotal natin yung non-cash excluding receivable from Jairaya. So effectively, all of these assets mentioned here, which is which totaled to 1,300,000, naibenta lang daw for 700,000. So therefore, paano natin yan i-account? So, a deduction of 1,300,000 kasi binenta, no? Binenta natin lahat, pero for how much lang? For 700,000 lang. So therefore, meron difference. Yung difference of 600,000, this will be accounted as your loss on the non-cash asset realization, no? So kung may loss dyan, class, how are we going to account for that? Of course, it's going to be deduction, no, to the partner's capital. So paano yan, class? Simply, kinuha ko lang yung difference ng dalawa representing the loss multiply by the profit and loss sharing ratio, no? So that's 300,000 for Jairaya, 60,000 for Tsunade representing 10% ownership, and then 240,000 kay Orochimaru, no, representing 40%, no? So okay na tayo dito, na-realize na natin yung non-cash assets. Next, how about the liquidating expense? No? So remember, no, we have a liquidating expenses amounting to 300,000. How are we going to take that up? Of course, we're going to pay that, no? So kung third party man yan, third party assessors or yun nga, marketplace, we have to pay those suppliers, no? So negative cash, no? So basically we're crediting our cash, no, to pay for them. Now, the related debit will be debit across the partner's capital, no? Kasi nga nagle-liquidate na tayo, no? So everything, no, every transaction will have to be uh, adjusted against the partner's capitalization, no? So that's 300,000. 300,000 multiplied by 50%, that's 150,000 for Jairaya, 30,000 for Tsunade, and then 120,000 for Orochimaru. Okay? So, kunin na muna natin yung balance. Ay, ano pala? Settlement muna ng liabilities. All liabilities to third party were paid accordingly as well. So, meaning full liabilities were settled, no? So for 1.4 million. So of course, credit to your cash 1.4 million, and then also debit to your liabilities, no? So that's 1.4 million. Sige. Kunin na natin ngayon yung subtotal. So we have 500,000. So kunin lang natin yung total, no? So that's 500,000 for cash. 0 na yung non-cash asset, obviously, kasi we have 1.3 million, and yet, no, we have realized the full amount, no, for consideration of 700,000 pesos lang. Yung loss have been um, allocated, no, between partners. Wala na rin yung liabilities kasi na-settle na natin, no? So the partners capital after realization of non-cash assets and paying the liquidating expenses and also payment to third-party liabilities would be as follows, no? So minus 150,000 kay Jairaya, 610,000 pesos kay Tsunade, and then kay Orichimaru, 40,000 pesos. But remember, sabi ng problem, requirement number 1, ang sabi is all of the partners are personally solvent, no? Kasi from here, on this part, nakita mo na class na si Jairaya, meron na siyang utang ng 150,000, di ba? And since sabi lahat daw ng partners are solvent, then Jairaya, no? Jairaya can pay additional, no, to cover yung negative balance uh, sa capital niya, no? So technically it's a debit balance, no? This is capital account, no? So paano natin gagawin 'yon? So of course, no, Jiraiya will pay the partnership 150,000 pesos. So debit cash, no? And also credit to his capital account, no? So after that, pansin mo, zero na yung kay Jiraiya. Meaning, he was able to fully satisfy, no, kung ano man yung utang niya sa partnership, no? Also, total cash would be 650,000. Now, what we're going to do next is we'll split the 650,000 among Tsunade and Orichimaru. Actually, it's just the capital balances, no? So that's 610,000 for Tsunade and 40,000 for Orichimaru. The question to requirement number 1, if all the partners are personally solvent, how much cash will Orichimaru receive at the end of the partnership liquidation? So the answer is letter B, 40,000 pesos. No? Siguro kung napansin nyo class, it's purely procedural. No? So ang kailangan lang natin ma-determine is whether all the partners are solvent, makakapagbayad ba sila o hindi. Kasi there will be a different treatment naman if one or more of the partners are insolvent. Are insolvent meaning walang capacity to pay. No? So that's requirement number 1. Let's have requirement number 2. In requirement number 2 naman, let me read the requirement. If all the partners are personally insolvent, how much cash will Tsunade receive at the end of partnership liquidation? O anong difference ng 1 and 2? Sa number 2, lahat naman daw sila insolvent. No? So lahat sila, they don't have the capacity to pay. No? If there will be, sabihin natin na debit balances in their capital accounts after asset realization and after payment of the liquidating assets and also after settlement, no, to third party creditors, no? So let's have problem number 2. Ganun ulit, no? Isa-isayin lang natin yung procedure. Of course, sige. So one more round pa para at least mas maintindihan, no? So 1,500,000, that's given. Oops, alisin dito na lang to. Kunin ko tong problem sa taas. Explain ko ulit yung beginning balances para at least mas malinaw. So we have 1.5 million that's given. For the non-cash assets, this represent your trade receivable of 100,000, inventory of 200,000, property, plant, and equipment of 1 million. So for 1.3 million. Liabilities, this represents your accrued expenses of 840,000 and other liabilities of 560,000. No? Jairaya Capital, this is excluding receivable from Jairaya of 600,000. So that's 900,000 less receivable from Jairaya of 600,000. So we have 300,000 pesos for Jairaya. Next for Tsunade. Tsunade has a capital of 450,000, but we have a payable to Tsunade, no, amounting to 250,000. So that's um, 900,000. Ay, sorry, that's kay Tsunade na ako. That's 450,000 less 250 plus 250,000. No? So Tsunade has a capital of 700,000. Kay Orochimaru naman, so capital is 400,000. So we have established the beginning balances right now. Kung napansin nyo class, no, it's very important to still keep yung accounting equation natin. No? Sabi ko sa inyo, best friend nyo yan. No? So asset is equals to liability plus equity. No? So we have to make sure that it's the accounting equation is balanced, no, for each transaction. No? So let's have the realization of non-cash asset. O baka naman malito ka pa kung ano yung NCA ha? Non-cash asset. Ay, na-mute yata ako. Okay. Okay, so again, no, sa problem, the same details, no? So trade receivables, inventory, and property, plant, and equipment were all realized for 700,000. No? So ano ba yung mga scenarios where we can only recover few, no, from our total non-cash asset? Syempre nga, 'di ba? Binebenta mo na yung magsasara ka na eh, no? So usually you are selling all your assets, non-cash assets on discount. Binabargain mo na yan, no? So para lang mabilis, no? So I assume, no, we can assume that in here that property, plant, and equipment amounting to 1 million, baka binenta na lang ng 500,000 yan. No? That's why we only recover or we only realize 700,000. So that's one of the scenarios, no? So again, step number one, so realization of non-cash assets, no, so we're selling it, we sold it for 700,000 pesos cash, total of 1,300,000. Again, the loss or the difference between these two, the 600,000, will be allocated or split amongst partners, no, so that's 300,000 for Jairaya, 600,000 multiplied by 50%, so that's 300,000, and then 10% for Tsunade, and then 240,000 for Orochimaru. Okay, so we're done also in step number one. Next, on the liquidating expenses, no, it's similar, it's the same. So that's 300,000 deduction to your cash, and then it will be split amongst partners. No? So that's 50% for Jairaya, 150,000, 30,000 for Tsunade, and then 120,000 for Orochimaru. Okay, so after that, we are going to settle, no, third-party creditors. So we have 1.4 million representing the total amount of our liabilities to third parties. So deduction to cash, also deduction to your liabilities. So pwede na natin makompute ngayon yung remaining balances. No? So we have 500,000 for cash, 0 for the non-cash assets, 0 for the liabilities. Ito na. Meron ka ngayong 150,000 minus for Jairaya, 610,000 for Tsunade, and then 40,000 kay Orochimaru. Dito na magkakaroon ng difference in take-up. Pag-usapan ngayon natin to briefly. No? So remember, in requirement number 2, all of the partners are insolvent. No? So meaning in case of Jairaya, wala siyang capacity to contribute to the partner, no? To the partnership para ma-cover tong 150,000 na debit balance on his capital account, no? So meaning paano natin yan i-settle, no? So we have to allocate that 150 between those partners with credit balances, no, remaining credit balances in their capital account, no. So pansinin mo, si Tsunade and Orochimaru, they still have balances in their capital account. No? So, paano natin ngayon to split? Of course, we have to split this using their original profit and loss ratio. No? So, 150,000, paano natin split? It's 10 over 5 or 10 over 50 and 40 over 50. So, paano yun? Or simply 0.20% or 20%. No? So that's 150,000 multiplied by 20% or yun nga, gawa ka ratio 10 over 50. No? So you'll get the same naman. So it's 30,000. For Orochimaru, so this represents 80%. Ayun na, 4 over 5. So that's 120,000. No? So kunin ulit natin yung remainder. So, pansin mo, zero na si Jairaya. So, the 150,000 debit balance on his account was absorbed by the remaining partners. No? So, the remainder, we have 500,000 pesos cash, zero to Jairaya, and then kay Tsunade, we have 580,000. And kay Orochimaru, meron tayong 80,000 minus ulit, no? So how are we going to settle that? Sabi, wala na daw pambayad, no? So todo na yan. Of course, the remaining partner, si Tsunade, who still has a balance of 580,000, will have to assume, no, those 80,000 debit balance in Orochimaru. So absorb niya na yan. So that's a deduction to his capital, no? So the allocation at the end of all the procedure would be 500,000 pesos for Tsunade. So ganun talaga ang partnership, no. Actually in this will be discussed in full, no, yung order of priority in your partnership law, no. So kaya palagi ko sinasabi this is procedural, and of course, no, this is also based on the application of relevant partnership laws, no. So in this case, class, the answer to requirement number 2 would be letter C, 500,000. Okay, so pag-usapan ngayon natin yung requirement number 3. If Orochimaru is personally solvent up to 50,000 and the rest of the partners are personally insolvent, how much cash will Tsunade receive at the end of the partnership liquidation? O notice class, ha, parang ginugulo na lang tayo ng problem na to. Para lang for the sake of illustration, sinasabi niya ngayon, o sige, may pera si Orochimaru, pero hanggang 50,000 lang. And the rest of the partners ay insolvent. So, sinasabi dito, paano ngayon yung magiging take up kung si Orochimaru is only solvent up to 50,000. So, let's have requirement number 3. Kailangan ko na ng screen ko na mas malaki. Hirap eh. O, sige. So I guess not this stage we have fully understood, no, how we've come up with this balances, no, sa beginning balances. So I'll skip that, no, unless may question kayo dyan. Beginning balances. Okay. So on the realization of non-cash assets naman, still, no, we're using the same details, no. So the non-cash assets were sold for 700,000 pesos only. So therefore, the loss on the realization of non-cash assets will have to be split between Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru using their profit and loss sharing, no. So 600,000 multiplied by 50%, so that's 300,000. Kay Tsunade naman, 60,000. So that's 600,000 multiplied by 10%. And then finally for Orochimaru, that's 600,000 multiplied by 40% or 240,000 pesos. Next, on the liquidating expenses or liquidation expenses of 300,000. That's a deduction to your cash, no? Kasi nga magbabayad ka. So yun lang naman ang logic nun. And of course, yung binayad natin dun sa mga third-party assessors or the marketplace, representing liquidation expenses will have to be split among the partners, no? So that's 50% for Jairaya or 150,000 pesos, 30,000 for Tsunade or 10% of 300,000, and then 40% of 300,000 pesos, 120,000 pesos for Orochimaru. Okay, so na-establish natin yung liquidating expenses and realization of non-cash assets. No? Okay, oops, pangit. Next step is to pay for the liabilities. Ito class, pag-usapan mo natin siguro to quickly. Bakit kaya inunang bayaran yung liquidation expenses bago yung liabilities to third parties? Of course, class, yung mga liquidating expenses dito, these are in relation to the realization of non-cash asset. No? Remember, class, di ba? Yung example natin kanina, ano ba yung mga expenses classified as liquidation expenses. So, yung example ko, you invite third-party assessor para ma-assess kung magkano ba yung value ng property, plant, and equipment natin. Also, if you're going to list it, no, meaning sa marketplace, no, yun nga lang, if you're aware, no, sa Facebook Marketplace, no, you can advertise it, no, for a cost, no, so that will form part of your liquidating expenses. Kaya kung napansin mo, earlier I introduced 3 steps, no? So realize the non-cash assets, pay the third-party liabilities, and distribute the remainder to among the parties, no? Wala doon yung liquidating expenses. Pero logically and essentially, nandoon siya dun sa step number 1, which is realization of non-cash assets. No? So I hope that's clear enough, no? So, punta tayo ngayon sa step number 2. Step number 2, payment of liabilities. No? So, full liabilities of 1.4 million. That's also given naman in the problem. No? So, okay na tayo dyan. So, minus 1,400,000 pesos sa cash kasi nga magbabayad tayo. And of course, we have to reduce our liabilities as well. Okay, so let's calculate now the balances. So that's 500,000 pesos cash, 0 sa non-cash asset, of course, and then 0 din sa liabilities. Now, si Jairaya, meron siya ngayong debit balance of 150,000. O class, wag magpapalit to ha. Kung napansin mo, ang ginawa lang natin sa mga beginning balances, we all place it as if positive lahat, no? Para at least mas mabilis na gumawa sa template natin na minus. But of course, no, malilito ka dito kung hindi mo alam yung normal side of accounts. But the assumed knowledge is at this stage, alam mo na yung mga normal side of the accounts, no? So cash on the debit side, liabilities and equities on the credit side, no? So therefore, this 150,000 na nakalagay dito as negative, this is actually a debit balance in Jairaya account, no? And then for Tsunade, he has a remaining of 610,000 pesos. For Orochimaru, 40,000 pesos. Okay. And remember, sa requirement number 3, si Orochimaru, siya yung personally solvent up to 50,000. So, parang it goes without saying, no? Si Jairaya at saka si Tsunade, no? They are all insolvent. Excuse me. Okay? So, therefore, itong 150,000 na debit balance, wala ng capacity to pay si Jairaya. So this will need to be absorbed by the 2 remaining partners. How are we going to split the 150,000? Of course, using their profit and loss sharing ratio. No? So that's 150,000 multiplied by 10 over 50 or 20%. And then kay Orochimaru naman, 40 over 50 or 4 over 5, no? Huwag kang magpapalito dyan, pare-parehas lang naman yan, no? So that's 120,000 pesos for Orochimaru. So let's now calculate the remaining balances, no? So that's 500,000 pesos cash. For 0 na yan. Kay Jairaya, 0 na rin. And then kay Tsunade, remainder of 580,000. And then kay Orochimaru, remainder of 80,000. O class, dito na yung medyo tricky part, no? Remember, si Orochimaru, he is personally solvent up to 50,000 pesos. So therefore, Orochimaru can still contribute additional payment to the partnership amounting to 50,000 pesos. Mabait si Orochimaru, no? So disclose nga that he still uh, has the capacity to pay, no? But up to 50,000 pesos lang. So in that case, let's plot, no, the payment made by Orochimaru. So of course, no, debit cash 50,000 and then credit Orochimaru capital for 50,000 pesos. So kunin ulit natin yung remaining balances, no? So that's 550,000 pesos for cash kasi may addition na 50,000. 580,000 for Tsunade and then ayun, 30,000 pesos debit kay Orochimaru. So in this case, class, ang sabi natin, all of the partners are insolvent. So therefore, that remaining 30,000 pesos debit balance on Orochimaru's capital account will have to be absorbed by the remaining partner. No? So sino na lang ba yung partner meron pang credit balance on his capital account? Si Tsunade na lang. No? So that's 30,000 debit, no, to his account. Tapos ayun, para mag-zero out. No? So now, we have to allocate, no, the remaining cash. No? It all goes to Tsunade. So the answer to requirement number 3, it's 550,000, letter C. Okay? So kung napapansin nyo, class, walang complexity. We just need to follow yung procedure on partnership liquidation. Sige, let's pause for a 5-minute break, stretching, and sige, go have your drink. No? Then let's come back after 5 minutes. Okay, so let's proceed to the last example problem. Okay, so number 4, if Jairaya is personally solvent up to 50,000 pesos, Orochimaru is personal solvent up to 100,000, and Tsunade is personally insolvent, how much cash will Tsunade receive at the end of the partnership liquidation? No? So ito, mas kinomplika pa nila. Daming information as to solvency. No? So let's have problem number 4. Okay. Ito yung, sige. O sige. O baka dahil nag-break tayo for 5 minutes, nalimutan na paano ulit nakuha tong beginning balance, ha? So, try natin. Beginning balances. Okay, so that's 1.5 million cash. So for the non-cash assets, we have 100,000 trade receivable plus 200,000 inventory plus property, plant, and equipment 100,000. So for a total of 1.3 million. For the liabilities, we have 840,000 accrued expenses, other liabilities of 560,000. No? So for a total of 1.4 million pesos. Now, for Jairaya, remember, meron tayong 900,000 pesos capital. But then, we have a receivable. The partnership has a receivable from Jairaya. So, may pautang tayo kay Jairaya amounting to 600,000 pesos. No? So, in that case, we have to deduct it from Jairaya's capital. Kaya nakuha natin yung 300,000 pesos. Now, let's go to Tsunade. Si Tsunade, has 450,000 pesos. But right now, meron tayong utang, no? The partnership has payable to Tsunade amounting to 250,000, no? So we have to add it to his capital balances, no? So Tsunade now has 700,000 pesos capital. Of course, kay Orochimaru, given naman, no? So that's 400,000 pesos. Okay, so let's go now to the different steps on the liquidation process. No? So number 1 step, realization of non-cash asset. No? So sabi ng problem, trade receivable, inventory, and property, plant, and equipment were all realized. No? So in other layman's term, were all sold, no, for 700,000 pesos cash. So nabenta ng 700,000, of course, we have to debit cash and then credit all those non-cash assets, no? So for 1.3 million. Of course, a difference of 600,000 or the loss on the realization of non-cash asset will have to be split between the partners using what? Their profit and loss ratio, no? So that would be 600,000 multiplied by 50% for Jairaya, 300,000. 600,000 multiplied by 10%, that's 60,000 pesos for Tsunade. And then 240,000 pesos for Orochimaru, no? So that's 600,000 multiplied by 40%. So okay na tayo sa step number 1. Actually, the next step is also part of step number 1, no? That's the liquidating expenses, no? So the liquidating expenses of 300,000, so we have to settle it na, no, to the third party. So we're settling it. Of course, we have to adjust also the capital balances, no? So that's 300,000 pesos multiplied by 50% for Jairaya, that's 150,000. 10% or 30,000 pesos for Tsunade. And then 120,000 pesos or 40% to Orochimaru. Okay? Of course, finally, we have to pay our third-party creditors. No? So we have 1.4 million total liabilities. So we have to pay them all as per the problem. No? Ayun pala, class, ha? It's just so happened that here, binayaran natin ang buo. No? So there could be instances where the partnership cannot also pay its liabilities in full. No? So yun palagi yung sinasabi ko. No? So you just have to rely on what uh, information is provided in the problem. No? So do not assume. So in this case, hindi tayo nag-assume, nakalagay kasi sa problem, all liabilities to third party were paid accordingly as well. No? So we have to settle it in full. No? So that's 1.4 million debit liabilities and credit cash. Okay na tayo dyan. So let's calculate the balances. No? So that's 500,000 pesos cash, zero non-cash asset, zero liabilities. We have 150,000 pesos debit to Jairaya, 610,000 credit Tsunade, and then 40,000 credit Orochimaru. Balikan natin yung requirement, no? Para at least hindi tayo malito. Sabi dito, Jairaya is personally solvent up to 50,000. Sulat ko lang dito, no? Si J, solvent daw siya up to 50,000. Orochimaru is personally solvent up to 100,000. Si Orochimaru up to 100,000. And then Tsunade is insolvent. No? Zero na lang natin siya. Okay? So with that, let's proceed with the final step. The final step is basically allocate the remainder. No? So si Jairaya, sabi, di ba, he's solvent up to 50,000. So Jairaya can still pay additional cash, no? Contribute additional cash to the partnership amounting to 50,000 up to dun lang sa level na kaya niya, no? So that's 50,000. So that's debit cash and credit Jairaya's capital for 50,000 pesos. So next step is palaging ganito, ha, class. Every time a transaction is transpired, so we have to calculate the remainder para hindi nakakalito, no? At least, no, during the undergrad, you have to practice uh, solving problems and creating your solutions in good form, kasi it could be right now ang kino-compute natin is palagi yung end result, no, how much would be the final cash settlement to ex partner, no, but what if ang tinatanong is how much remaining balance in Jairaya's capital after uh, realizing all the non-cash assets, paying the liquidating expenses and payment of liabilities. So imagine, no, kung hindi maayos yung calculation mo, you will end up redoing the whole calculation, and simply it's just a waste of your time. No? So yun, I encourage all of you to uh, at least, no, yung readable man lang yung sa inyo, no, sa sarili nyo, kasi at the end of the day it's you taking the exam, no? Okay, so that's 550,000 pesos cash, 100,000 pesos minus, no, to J Raya. We have Tsunade of 610,000 pesos, and then 40,000 pesos for Orochimaru. Now, si J Raya, no, still has a debit balance of 100,000, and yet hindi na siya kaya magbayad, no? Is no longer solvent, no? So what we're going to do is we allocate that 100,000 among Tsunade and Orochimaru, kasi napansin mo, parehas pa silang merong balances, no? So how are we going to split that? Let's use still the original profit and loss sharing ratio, but this time among Tsunade and Orochimaru na lang, no? So that's 100,000 multiplied by 10 over 50 or 1 over 5 or 20%. So that's 20,000 pesos. Kay Orochimaru naman, that's 80% or 4 over 5 or 40 over 50. Ikaw nang bahala kung saan ka mas masaya. That's 80,000 pesos. So after that, let's calculate ulit yung mga remaining balances, no? So that's 550,000 pesos cash, 590,000 pesos for Tsunade, and then 40,000 pesos for Orochimaru. Okay, class, stop muna tayo dito kasi pansinin mo, also in requirement number 4, it mentioned there that Orochimaru is solvent up to how much? 100,000 pesos. And that's sufficient enough to cover yung debit balance niya in the partnership capitalization. No? So in that case, he can still contribute cash to the partnership. No? So that's 40,000 pesos. O class, hindi niya ibibigay yung buo. Ang kailangan niya lang i-contribute is up to the extent nung debit balance niya sa partnership. Baka kasi mamaya malito ka, sabi mo, oh, kaya pala magbayad ng 100,000, kinontribute yung 100,000. So that's a big no, no? Okay, so that's 40,000 debit to cash and credit to Orochimaru's capital. No? So after doing that, we'll have the remaining balances of 590,000 pesos cash, and then Tsunade's capital of 590,000 cash. No? So after that, of course, we'll have to allocate the remainder. But this time, there's only one partners left. Only one partner left after doing the liquidation steps or processes. No? So that 590,000 pesos will go to Tsunade. Okay? So kung napansin nyo, class, yung partnership, well, partnership liquidation problems, it can take really a lot of time to solve, no? So to calculate. Pero ang tip lang palagi is you'll have to make sure to follow the steps, no? Kasi it won't it well, it appears complex, no? And yet it's procedural, no? Yun yung palagi kong sinasabi under partnership. It's procedural. All you have to do is follow kung ano yung agreement nila. Kasi at the end of the day, partnership is based on consensual agreement. So kung paano nila napag-usapan, huwag kang makialam, no? It's the agreement among themselves, no? So in this case, in partnership liquidation naman, it's the steps, no? That's really important, no? So you have to realize all the assets first, pay the liquidation expenses if there are any, and then settle all the third-party liabilities. Be careful with that. All the priority will have to be the third-party liabilities, no? Because the sabihin natin liability to the partner will have to be absorbed by their respective capital, no? Okay, actually that ends our discussion on partnership liquidation, no? So again, if you have any questions, you can write me a note, no, via my personal email address.
This has been your instructor, Mark Gibson. Thank you for learning with us. See you in our next discussion. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya!